Hello and welcome everybody, I'm Bavarian, and today we're going to be talking about EU5. Namely, we're going to be talking about 1.0.10, the update that was just released, what it means, and then afterwards I want to talk about a community discussion about railroading versus simulationists that I think is completely ridiculous, and yeah, just kind of leading the game, and I guess the community into a really weird direction. I want to tell you right now that I have been playing this game, but only about 5 to 6 hours a week in the last couple of weeks, just because I am not happy with the state of the game. I'm just not having a good time. I want to make this clear because I think I'm part of a demographic that does exist, but that very recently has become more and more silent because things just aren't working out for them. I did one video and I think the response was pretty resounding. I think the general communication, the open beta, they have not been good. I stand by everything in that video, and I want to yet again voice something because I love this game. I really do. But right now, over the Christmas holidays, I have to say to myself, honestly, I'm gonna play other games when I am playing games. But okay, let's just jump straight into discussing 1.0.10. This update was released just yesterday from when this video goes live, and it was in an open beta stage for quite some time. This update does a lot of good things. It adds advances that are quite unique to certain tags. It also makes it so that, indeed, proximity and rivers have been reworked, and I think significantly for the better. I think they are a lot of fun. I think there's something good happening there. But it also released in a state that makes me not want to play the game at all. If you take a look behind me at the time-lapse, then you might know why I am saying this. What happened in 1.0.10 in the open beta very early on was that we were looking at an incredibly aggressive AI. This incredibly aggressive AI is of course in direct opposition to what the AI was before that, incredibly timid. In the open beta, the AI took a lot of exclaves, it was really ugly, it sucked, okay? They changed this, but that doesn't change the fundamental objection that I had when I saw this level of AI aggression. That hasn't been fixed at all. This patch is live right now. I want to talk about the AI aggression in just 1 second, but before that, let me make something clear here. We can't really go back to old patches. The old branches are gone, except 1.0.9. Now, officially, they are saying that basically nobody played on it, and frankly, I believe them, because most people don't want to mess about with, oh, was I on 1.0.4 or 1.0.7? What exactly was happening there? What are the differences between the actual patches, especially given, of course, that the patch notes have been absolutely horrendous so far for this game, leaving us in a space where, yeah, if you don't enjoy the current live version, you're just not gonna keep playing. That is the actual consequence. If 0.1% of people are willing to go onto a particular old version, be it for example 1.0.4, that just means that many other players just stop playing the game. I don't want to obsess over player numbers. I think that this is a ridiculous thing. I personally don't endorse it all entirely because A, I don't know when this game is profitable for Paradox. In my mind, there is no way that it isn't profitable. But more importantly, declining player numbers aren't really a good indicator. It is the survivorship bias kind of thing, right? Just because many people are playing something doesn't mean that it works for the player type of me, and so on and so forth. Productive conversations are not being had by saying, oh, I bet your player numbers are going to go down to 0. What we need to talk about is what is going wrong, why players like me don't enjoy what is happening, and go from there. So essentially, most of the other branches have been removed. You have to play 1.0.9 or 1.0.10, both of which are a mouthful without a doubt. I will tell you simultaneously, of course, that 1.0.10 currently is absolutely here to stay. We're looking at the Christmas holidays. They are coming back, self-admittedly, of course, in mid-January on average anyway. That is when the team will be regularly staffed and so on. And then in February, we are to expect 1.1. A big patch, supposedly, a patch that changes a lot of things about the HRE from what we've heard, which the HRE desperately needs. I've talked about this as well. I want to mention here as well, I wrote a really long feedback document in the pre-release stage where influencers had access to the game, basically. A lot of the HRE is not working well, if at all. Currently in 1.0.10, the HRE is not working in any way whatsoever, but let's put that aside right now. What I mean to say here is that the way this patch is the way that the game will be for the foreseeable future. At least a month, maybe a little bit more. Maybe there can be 1 or 2 hotfixes, of course, but of course the team is working on a deeper, kind of much more future-oriented patch. I will say fundamentally that is good if 1.0.10 was in a state where I would say, wow, I'm having a great time. But I am not having a great time. The big flaw of 1.0.10, as far as I'm concerned, and this will directly lead us into the second part of this particular video and this discussion right here, is the fact that it kills all variety, it kills all of the flavor, and it kills all of the existing guardrails for history within the game. Am I being harsh here? No, I'm not being harsh. I'm sorry. When I take a look at what is going on in the game right now, we can very clearly see that big AIs just keep blobbing. The reason for this is that these big AIs have more levies at the start of the game. Levy now is appropriately on a cooldown. It was bugged where you could essentially almost immediately re-raise all of the troops that you had just lost. Now that is fixed, which means that if I defeat your army once, then I have a 5 years truce with you, you are at max at like 50% of your levies. Which means I can wipe you again. That means once I start blobbing, because that is the mechanically optimal thing to do, I will never be stopped. This is why the AI is currently doing what it is doing. We see higher AI aggression that isn't really focused on anything other than this person is weak, I will now attack them, and we are seeing a completely unrecoverable starting situation the moment you have been defeated once in the early game. And, well, after the early game, it's essentially all over. This makes it so that every single piece of narrative content, be it systemic or be it an event or be it whatever, that is focused on history and how history plays out is completely neutered. We're looking at a Holy Roman Empire that is completely incapable of even passing the Golden Bull. Again, not to mention that literally everything after the Golden Bull was also completely broken and incapable prior to 1.0.10, but it's even worse now. This is the Holy Roman Empire in the live version. It doesn't exist. It's not real. It can't hurt you. Voltaire wins, I guess, right? We're also looking at a 100 Years' War that still is very poorly balanced, that is incredibly crazy with how vassals flip and how that is actually kind of incited for them to flip, right? We're looking at a situation where the League War, where Guelphs and Ghibellines is completely unbalanced, if not broken, the Western Schism still What I'm saying is, if we get rid of every single tiny tag because we dial up the aggression of the AI, and then that AI just keeps eating and eating and eating, we end up with what is effectively just a board game. EU4 is also a board game-like, okay, but it's not exactly like this, because the pacing in EU4 is tighter. This game is in a state where the Holy Roman Empire might as well not exist as a mechanic in this version that is now live for at least a month. We are looking at a game where people consolidate into shapeless blobs just because they can, just because that is mechanically optimal, and just because the AI essentially goes out of its way to just keep hitting down onto the weak people because they can't recover levies fast enough. This makes every playthrough the same. This is my actual issue with it. I want to be clear about this. Before we even come to the major kind of debate, I guess, that the community has had that I want to discuss in this video as well, everything related to Sandbox versus railroading, I want to just bring one thing up. The way it is right now clearly cannot be intended. Because when I look at EU5 and when I look at EU4, I see very clear guardrails and pacing. Whether we have the underlying systems that are of course incredibly rich in the way that they work, right, population and so on, or whether we don't have them, it doesn't really matter. Every 100 years you enter a new age. This new age is clearly there so that you experience something that is unique to that age. The Reformation, exploration, the League Wars, whether we're talking about revolutions, about absolutism, it is clearly segregated because the game says, I don't want you to experience absolutism in 1500, I want you to experience absolutism, you know, when it happened, historically. These kind of guardrails are intentional, and these guardrails, and the next thing now is very important, were also something that was clearly publicly favored by Johan Andersson, the game director. Now, I don't know where the current kind of consensus in the team and for Johan himself is when it comes to this topic, but I do want to cite this post right there. He very clearly states, I agree 100%. Players want to see an Ottoman Empire, a strong Russia, and want to experience the Reformation and wars of religion. Players want their choices to change history. I've been doing these games for 25 plus years now, and many times I've been suckered in by we can simulate everything, we don't need narrative guidelines, only for game launches to be rocky and having to readjust and making sure historical narratives are happening often enough. This sentiment right there is my sentiment. That is what I want out of this game. Except with this new balancing, with this current patch as it is released, all of the historical guardrails that at least are meant to funnel you into these historical situations are broken. They are gone. And just to be clear here, if you are enjoying yourself, please keep enjoying yourself. Just because a guy on the internet tells you that he dislikes this game, doesn't mean that you have to dislike it. It just means that, hey, maybe he has some good points, maybe you agree or disagree with it. That's good. If you're having fun, you're having fun. But the reality for me is that if I play normal countries, quote unquote, like Castile and, I don't know, Hungary or something, the playthroughs largely feel the same. Because the role that I would take in these historical situations, as vaguely as they approach us, I could be a Protestant Spain, for example, right? they simply do not happen. Which, as a consequence, of course, means that me blobbing as Castile is blobbing the same as blobbing as Hungary. Because I will simply keep taking land until I become a shapeless blob and then go to bet against other shapeless blobs. The intention that was communicated with us before launch here clearly isn't what the game currently is. So, in short, why did I stop playing the game? The relentless blobbing of the AI makes it so that I have no choice. If I play a tiny country like the Netherlands, or anybody in the Netherlands really, I need to try hard. Or in the first 20 years, France and England will, because I am of course an easy target together with all of my neighbors, will simply eat the entire area up. This means playing a small country, either you try hard or it's not actually feasible to play. If you play a big country, since none of the historical contextual kind of situations arise in a manner that is satisfying, every big country is the same. I blob for tech space, I build the same kind of things, I do the same evaluations on the topic of rivers and roads, by the way. Again, the proximity and river rework is great, but yeah, I do the same things. The underlying systems here that are meant to have guardrails and to deliver interesting content and make it so that I know in the next century there is interesting content my way, are not working with this AI. When I look at the Netherlands, once they are eaten, all of their unique content is gone. When I look at Burgundy, at Aragon, once they are eaten, all of their unique historical content is gone. When I look at the HRE and whatever the hell this is, the League War is gone. All of that stuff is gone. So that is why I'm not having a good time. And that is why I'm barely playing the game at this point. Now, having said that, it brings me directly to the actual conversation that I think is being had in the community, but in the, I don't want to say nefarious, it is kind of purposely misunderstanding things, I guess. I feel like both sides are just strawmanning each other over and over again. When they introduced the initial strong AI aggression into the open beta, when I said, I think this is bad because it's going to make everything very sameish, there's just going to be this aggression all around, and that is all every playthrough will be, I was told, oh, you want to go back to the AI doing nothing. No. The way crazy aggression has been justified now over the last couple of weeks is that it is just more fun if you're playing, I don't know, a blobby playthrough, which is, it might be. Sure, I will give you this, and if you're enjoying this, that's great for you. But this is a pivotal moment now where the game potentially might be going into a direction, at which point the game just won't be for me. I loved the systemic, simulationist approaches that this game has, but I also loved that the game was always incredibly open about the fact that it wants historical things to happen, as evidenced with what Johan is saying there, but also with how situations and international organizations work. These things assume that there is a certain order in Europe. If all of Europe turns Cathar, then the Holy Roman Empire and its league wars don't make any sense. The Reformation wouldn't make any sense. The game is clearly constructed in such a fashion that the broad strokes of history play out. That is no longer the case. So when we now talk about mission trees, when we talk about railroading versus simulationist, it's a false dichotomy. None of this actually opposes one another. We are looking at a game that was always incredibly open about wanting both, about you shaping your country in a particular way while also experiencing historical circumstances. These historical circumstances are what makes the simulation different in each playthrough. What makes it so that you're building a country, but it might just be slightly different, because this time around, I don't know, you don't have access to these or those goods from the New World, and because of this you have to act differently within the 30 Years' War. What we have right now, and what seems to be the new developer intention, given that this patch went live, which, there's like a graph where it's like, how tilted are you? You know, the graph, once you get tilted because something happened, it starts really high and then it drops off rapidly after a while. Like, you stay high, it doesn't gradually go down. I'm like right at the point where I start being untilted, but think about it this way, right? We're looking at a game that has this simulationist approach and yet also says, I want to have guardrails for you where you can say, me playing another 100 years is worth it because I know history will happen there. CK3 doesn't have this. CK3, at some point you just go, well, guess this is it, I'm out. It added the Mongols, right? This is one of the big charges there, but fundamentally there are no dynamics like this. It does not happen in CK3, and because of this, the mid and end game is just really nothing. You don't really do much there. You make your own fun. Whenever you run out of this, it's over. EU5 says, no, I got fun prepared for you. Except in the current version and with this AI aggression, none of the fun actually works. Simulation without the guardrails that throw challenges at you that makes it worth simulating it is not worth anything. I know that a lot of people that lean more into the sandboxy approach like to go, well, but you know, I don't really want to read a history book, I want to just do stuff. Yeah, that's right, but there's so much content in this game that is destined for you that you are not seeing because the HRE is wiped out within 50 years. Your simulation is flawed. If we're being honest with ourselves, and I think this is something that I've seen in Victoria 3's fanbase as well, whenever there's a lack of content, people will say, well, it's the simulation, you need to make your own fun, right? But the reality is that after a few years, after more content has made it into the game, flavor, like the good recent update for Spain and Portugal for Victoria 3, for example, whenever that happens, those voices completely dissipate because we all know flavor is good. We want to see flavor, we want to engage with history, we want to deal with it. We want to deal with it differently, yes, but we want to deal with it. What the game has done right now, thanks to all the blobbing that the AI does, thanks to the unmitigated disaster, I will just call it that has happened, that has occurred to virtually all situations and international organizations, partially due to AI aggression being up significantly, the HRE again goes out of the window instantly, but also partially because these situations, when mechanics get updated, don't get revisited enough by the devs to make sure that they still work. If we're being honest with us, we have these situations. We don't need to wait 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And so all I can say, if we truly are just going into a direction where we are looking at, well, as long as they're blobbing, it's good. As long as there's activity on the map, it's good. Even if 50% of the content that the developers put a lot of work into to make work and to give us these kind of guardrails of history, even if that doesn't work, then the game might just not be for me. At the end of the day, that is possible, but I didn't expect it from EU5. The other element, and this is I guess the sign-off for EU5 discussion, I have some other essays that are in the pipe that are coming out, but the other element that I do want to highlight is that 1.1 is going to be a big patch in February. Now I will say, this is a bigger patch. They don't need to kind of give us hot code all the time in one of these bigger patches. They can let it cook for quite some more time, but right now I am not confident that 1.1 will come out and actually fix things rather than just break more things. We are now stuck with this situation. This is the way it is. You can try to mod it away, but again, quite frankly, we are so close to release. I would love to just play the game as it is intended to be played. Simultaneously, and this is the last thing that I want to mention here in this video as well, 1.1 is planned for February and it seems to, well, have a plan for the HRE to rework it and so many other things. But this, as complex as this game is a mammoth task. I have said this in my review. I mentioned specifically that I think this is the buggiest launch entirely because if you have a game where 7 out of 10 things don't work, well, that's 7 things. If you have a game where 10,000 out of 50,000 don't work, yeah, it's going to take you a lot longer than fixing those 7 things. So where I'm coming from on 1.1 is that I'm incredibly cautious and borderline pessimistic because the changes that have been made in 1.0.10 will have a massive downstream effect on how the HRE will behave, just considering AI aggression, the way it works, and so on. Right now, I'm straight up not having a good time. Yeah, the people that want history in this game and not just blobbing are not frustrated because there is more blobbing. They are frustrated because the guardrails that are intended to work were completely busted, and the perpetrators are the developers. That's just the way it is. Nobody else did this. I didn't even mention in this video that stuff about naval warfare is still broken in this particular patch, about the fact that, of course, the balancing in military is still bad. It is what it is. Okay, let me know what you think in the comments. For me, it's mostly about these false dichotomies, because if the next year for EU5 is to be a good one, we need some realism here. And the realism is that EU5 being the way it is right now is just making it so that all countries feel the same way. And that can't really be the intention of anybody. Not to mention, not really the intention of Johan himself, right? Folks, I'm gonna leave it right here. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. Are you playing other games? I'm playing Ark Raiders. I am doing quite well. I'm not gonna be doing the expedition, but I am trying to get all my stuff up for the winter update so that I can finish that project and then, you know, we can move from there. For the moment, I will leave you right here and I will see you later, alligator.